I received a couple of comments asking me how I make my templates for my shoulder guard. So I'm going to go over how I make a template. So here is the template for the green shoulder guard that I had made. Now I made this template out of an old Cheerio box, and today instead I'll be using an old file folder. You can use construction paper, butcher paper, fabric. I recommend a stiffer type of paper, but whatever works for you. Now in my pattern here I have this little V cutout, and what this does is when it's put together, either by being stitched or a layer riveted over it, it helps curve the shoulder guard and make it easier to shape later on. Now, how I got this exact V shape was a lot of experimentation. I started with a much more narrower cutout, and I slowly just folded it over itself until I got to about the roundness I wanted for my shoulder. So the size of this exactly will vary from person to person. So for me, it's about 2 inches and a quarter by about 3 inches and a quarter. Now I also made 2 pieces like this to cover the rest of the arm, and the length of this didn't exactly really matter. I just picked a length that I felt looked good. If you're taller or shorter, you might want to adjust it accordingly. For me, mine's about 7 inches tall and 6.5 inches wide. Now I have very, very skinny arms, so if you have beefier arms, you might want to make it wider. Okay, so now that I've gone over the old pattern, I'll start making the new one. And you'll notice that I'm going to be very vague and general with numbers because I'm actually very bad at math and I tend to eyeball everything, but I'll do the best I can. Okay, so now for making the actual pattern itself that we'll be going off of today. So for this pattern, I have here a ruler, which is a flexible bendable metal ruler, and I'll just be measuring where I want it to come down to here to about to where I want to come down to on my back. So I'm just going to bend it to about where it feels about right, and then I take a look at where it ends up. In this case, about 11 inches. I may decide I want to go larger or smaller, and I'll think about that for this exact design. And now for the length of it, where I wanted to go from my shoulder to the edge of my shoulder. So I'm just going to measure that right there. That's about 6.5, 7 inches. And looking at my old pattern, that's what I got from there too, so I guess I haven't really grown since I made this pattern. Okay, now for the fun part. Now we're actually going to get into designing the template itself. So you see here, here's the original one which I used for the green arm guards. However, I'm not making another green shoulder guard. I'm making one in this style. So I'll show how I mark details on my pattern piece. So I know that I want to make it about 13 inches long, and about 7.5 inches tall. And I want it to have about the same V cut out of it as this one. But I do know I also want to make it different style so it's not so round, so there's some more pointed edges and stuff. So let's get to doodling. Alright, so now I have half of my pattern marked, and I have left some generous extra sizing there in case anything needs to change. So I'm going to fold it in half and cut it since it's symmetrical, and try on see how I feel about it and if it needs to change. Okay, now that I put a little bit of tape on the edge here to hold it together, we'll see kind of how this fits for now. And if it needs any changing, of course it's going to be molded more once we have leather, but we're just going to get a rough idea. And I think I like how much this comes out, because we can definitely do a little bit of flare here. Now I'm kind of concerned to see if this comes down too low, if it will impede movement, or if it's fine. So I'm going to get a second opinion on that, and I'll be right back. This is the part for whenever I'm making patterns that there's a lot of trial and error going on. I don't have a set method that I use, as I've only done this a couple of times, and I haven't found templates readily available. So this is just trial and error for me. Okay, looks like I'm all set to start making more of the details in the pattern now that we have the general shape. I'd like to note that this is by far not the only way to make a shoulder guard or even how to make a pattern in general. You could definitely use fabric or modeling off of a dummy or mannequin if you happen to have one. This is just the way that I have found helps me. If you have any other ideas or suggestions on how to make a pattern, please let me know. I would love to learn more ways how to do this. So now I have a rough design of how I want this piece to be textured. So as you see on the arm guard here, we have the textured area and then the untextured area with the studs. So this will be an untextured area with studs, and this will be a textured area. So now I'm going to figure out how to space the studs. Now how I decided that is I actually take some of these studs I have, and I'll be putting one in a starting position, and I'll actually have it pierce through the paper. And basically I'm going to be marking it as if they're going to be lined up exactly next to each other, but then I don't have the middle one, so that remains that space in between. That's what I did here. So I'll be piercing all those holes, and then I'll be folding it in half and mirroring it on the other side. So I'll get back to you when that part of the pattern is done. So I have cut out the areas where I will be marking it to be tooled, and I have cut in with an X-Acto knife all of the little marks for where the spikes or studs are going to be, and then I also punched the holes that comes out of the smaller piece here, which is what's going to hold it together. On my green armor, I actually stitched together. On this one, I want to use rivets because it's easier, and that way I can add more studs to it. I'm now working on designing this part of the shoulder guard, which is the part that actually covers the upper arm. Now I measured this part just by taking the same ruler and going over my arm and seeing how large I want it. In my case, it's about, I think it's 7 inches, which is that in metric. And for you, just measure it however fits you the best. So now that I have made this pattern here out of paper, I'm actually just going to go ahead and make the thing out of leather. This is the part where I really wanted to show you how I oftentimes deviate from the pattern I make or make adjustments as I see necessary, because I'm not entirely sure the pattern will work as it is. Alright, so now that I've actually put the studs in where I had put all the marks in, and I did that by cutting a little soft with an X-Acto knife, and they're all just in here for now, just to make sure that they all fit and that I had enough of the studs. I will be taking these all out before I dye it and put them in permanently. And these go in permanently by these little parts here, fold over. So this has nothing to do with the pattern, so I'm just going to do all that off camera, and I'll get back to you when it comes back to the parts where there's the things that I do without a pattern. Also, there's these 2 holes here. I'll be feeding a little cord through here that's going to tie into these holes here so that you can freely move your arm. I did not do that in the green shoulder guard and ended up having to take it apart and add another part to it and then tie it through so that you could be able to move your arm freely. So now that I have all the parts cut out, dyed, tooled if necessary, and had all the little studs and parts put in, everything involving the pattern is done. I didn't use a pattern for the straps because I just figured out what length of strap I needed depending on what person's going to wear it. And since a large variety of people will be wearing this, I put it on a long strap. And now it's just time to rivet it, and that will be it. Now to connect the shoulder guard to the arm guard part, I have this leather cord which is going to loop through these holes and tie in through these holes so you can have full range of motion without having anything firm stopping you from moving. So here is how that all connects together. It's that little part that ties there through there.